Kia ora guys, Michelle here and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm very excited to be covering off with you exactly what I will be carrying for a full 8-day resupply on a gluten-free diet on the South Island leg of Te Araroa. Really not that long now until I take my first steps on the South Island leg of Te Araroa, and I thought that something that you guys might be interested in is exactly what I will be carrying in terms of food resupply through some of those longer sections on the South Island. Some of you guys who are more familiar with the Te Araroa route will know that there are sections on the South Island sometimes up to 10 days long with no real possibility for resupply in between. And for those of us who are on specific diets, so for example for me, I basically eat gluten-free and then I also try to limit the amount of dairy that I have in my system as well. It really becomes a little bit difficult on the South Island where you can't always pick up options for those particular kinds of diets. Now for all of the information on everything that you will see in this video, including recipes for some of the food that I have made and also my proposed resupply locations, don't forget to check out that description box down below. That is where all of the information is for you. Alright, without further ado, let's take a look at a typical 8-day resupply for me on the South Island leg of Te Araroa. Alright, so this is about as wide as the camera lens will go, and this is the entirety of an 8-day resupply section for the South Island. So this would kind of mostly cover you through the Richmond Ranges section or potentially even the Nelson Lake section. Those are the two sections from either Pelorus Bridge through to St Arno, or then from St Arno all the way through to Boyle Village. Typically those sections tend to take hikers anywhere between 8 to 10 days to hike through, so with a few tweaks this is what your resupply would look like for either of those two sections. Now I should caveat that all by saying that even though this is most of the food that I will be taking, there will be a couple of extra little bits and pieces that I will pick up along the way. And specifically those will be things that I know that I can pick up in the smaller towns and centres on the South Island. So things like blocks of chocolate and smaller blocks of cheese or packets of cheese. Here is all of the stuff that I probably would not otherwise be able to pick up in those smaller centres. I'm also including in this resupply video not just the food that I will be carrying, but towards the end we are also going to be covering off some of the other things that I choose to include in my resupply boxes. Again, mostly because either I don't want to carry a large amount of something with me all the time, or because I know that it's going to be difficult to find in an area that I'm hiking through. So I've separated everything out into the food for each particular day. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days. And actually towards the further end of the table here, those 2 days are actually an emergency supply. So why is it that I have 2 days of emergency supply? Is that really necessary when you're hiking Te Araroa? Well, in my opinion, especially through some of these sections on the South Island, it is really important to carry with you an emergency supply of food. Now let's take my particular example. I'm starting in November on the South Island. November is typically not a particularly good time to be starting a southbound hike of the South Island because of the incumbent weather conditions and the fact that the weather can be a lot more unsettled at that time of year than it can be a little bit later. For those hikers or through hikers who are generally starting in a southbound direction from Cape Reinga around about the same time of the year, they're probably not going to be hitting the South Island until around January when the weather is a lot more settled. So having taken all of that into account, and then also considering the fact that for the first couple of weeks on the South Island, through hikers are going to be experiencing 2 of the longest sections on the entire trail. You've got the Richmond Range section, which can take up to 10 days to get through, and then also the Nelson Lake section, which can take up to 8 days to get through. And you can see why it is important to carry with you an emergency supply of food in case you get caught out by weather at any point in those sections. So I have a 2-day supply of emergency food there just in case I have to sit out the weather in one of these huts for any reason. It's not uncommon to get freak snowstorms, even right in the middle of summer here in New Zealand on some of those higher mountain ranges. Even though it does weigh a lot of extra weight, at the end of the day it could end up saving your life. Now you might be thinking, okay, well if you're carrying 2 days worth of supply, you've actually only got 6 days worth of food, and that's not enough to get through the 6 to 8 days of the Richmond Range section. Well, no it's not, and that's because this year I am incredibly lucky, and the people that I am hiking with actually have a contact in Nelson who is going to be hiking some food into the Hackett Hut for us. That is 2 days into the Richmond Alpine Track, and I'm just incredibly lucky that that means I don't have to carry those 2 extra days of food. So if you are a through hiker and you are sitting there trying to plan your resupply for the Richmond Range section, then you would have 8 days worth of food, which is 6 days plus 2 days, and then you should also be thinking about carrying 2 extra days worth of food for an emergency supply as well. Anyway, I've babbled enough about logistics. Like I said, take a look in that description bar down below if you want to find out any more detail about logistics and places that you can resupply on the South Island. For now, let's get right into exactly what I'll be carrying on a daily basis. So, like I said, I've just generally tried to space everything out on the table in daily portions just to give you a bit of an idea of exactly what I'm going to be eating every single day. Now, I'm not somebody who has to have something completely different every day just to feel like I'm getting the kind of variety that I need. As long as it is something that is filling, as long as it's tasty, I really don't mind the fact that I'm eating similar things every day. So you will see a lot of very similar things as we move through this resupply package. With my dinners though, I have tried to give myself a lot more variety. So last year on the North Island, I actually ended up only rotating out 2 different dinners, and I did relatively well with those actually. They didn't get boring at all, but I was starting to feel a little bit of variety fatigue before I started preparing for the South Island this season. So you'll see that in this video I actually have 4 different resupply options for my dinners on the South Island, and I'm hoping that they all work out really well. So let's start right up here at the top, and before we go too much further, you will see that I've got these little notes on the table here which tell you roughly how many grams each of these little packets of food weighs. Now, why am I telling you grams? Why am I not telling you calories? Well, calories of course are very important, and if you're somebody who likes to count calories or you're very, very worried about it, then I would suggest that you do look at the caloric intake of everything that you're taking if you are worried about it. But to be honest with you, calories aren't really something that I'm incredibly worried about. I'm more worried about quantity and the regularity of when I'm eating. So I know that I have to have something to eat in the morning for breakfast. I also know that I tend to stop at least once, if not twice, during the morning to have something to eat. I'll have a decent lunch break. I'll usually stop at least once in the afternoon to have another little snack, and then I'll have my proper dinner and everything when I get to camp in the evening. So the very first thing you'll see up at the top here are my breakfast options. So basically I have a homemade muesli here that I've made. That one there is a sultana muesli, and then I have an apricot muesli, and then my third breakfast option is a brekkie scramble. I actually used this out on the Te Araroa North Island section last year. That's just basically instant mashed potatoes with a little bit of freeze-dried scrambled egg in there. 3 options for breakfast. I'm actually really excited about those options because I really hated eating porridge every day for breakfast on the North Island. So I found a way to use up my 5 kilos of gluten-free oats by making my own toasted muesli recipe. Again, that will be linked for you in the description down below. And before we move on to the snacks, just to give you an idea, so the muesli weighs at about 112 to 115 grams, and the brekkie scramble weighs at just 100 grams, and that can both be made up with just water that I collect or use at the huts. Then we're going to move on to my morning snacks. So for this, I'm carrying something that I don't usually carry with me, and that is just basically little packets of fruit and nuts and a little bit of chocolate that I had left over. And a little packet of nuts that I've measured out here is about 84 grams. It's probably a good couple of handfuls worth in size. So I'm looking forward to having that a little bit to give me a little bit of variety in the morning. And then also one other thing that I have done this year is made my very own muesli bars. So these are peanut butter, chocolate, and lots of oats and nuts and seeds and things. Some of them do have a little bit of apricot in them as well. I made them, I baked them, and then I have vacuum sealed them, although this one in this packet didn't actually vacuum seal properly, so that's why they're in my first resupply box. You'll see that these bars weigh at about 130 grams, which is quite heavy, and originally I had packed my box so that I had a set of 2 bars in every single day's worth of supply. But you can see that I don't actually have one for every day at the moment. All I have is 2 bars for alternating days. Now this is for a couple of different reasons. One is that I'm not confident that I'm going to be hungry enough to eat 2 bars every single day. The other reason why I've only got one every other day is of course because of the weight. At 130 grams each, it just became ridiculously heavy to have a packet of 2 muesli bars in every single day's worth of supply. Alright, then we move on to our lunch supplies, and here is where I have another 2 different options. So my first option here was actually to make myself an Italian minestrone type soup mix. But this is basically just a set of freeze-dried vegetables, a little bit of corn flour mixed in, a little vegetable stock cube, and then also some freeze-dried macaroni or elbow pasta in there. I need 2 cups of water, put in that in the morning to soak while I'm hiking for the day, and then at lunchtime I just warm it up over my stove, and that makes a really good, really filling lunch meal for me. At least I hope it does. And then along with that, either to eat with lunch or either as my afternoon snack a little bit later, is just a Snickers bar. So that weighs about 50 grams, and that's going in my resupply box here. The other option that I have for lunch is, like I said, these gluten-free tortilla wraps, which I will put some of these peanut butter slugs from Pix in. Now, one thing of peanut butter of this size would probably do 2 of these gluten-free tortillas in a pinch, but just in case, and just to give me a little bit more extra energy, I have allowed for 2 of them. And these are just the Old El Paso gluten-free tortillas. They're not particularly large. You can get an idea of the diameter there. There's 6 of them in a pack, which means that on the days that I'm having them, which is this day, and this day, I'm actually going to be using up 6 basically. So that's my 3 days worth of supply. So that is lunch on the alternate day when I'm not having soup, and again just another Snickers bar to have with afternoon tea. And then of course the final thing that I will be eating every day is dinner, and I have a few different options for dinner. So first of all, there is a spaghetti bolognese. This is made with real beef mince and gluten-free spaghetti. Then moving on to a chili con carne, again made with real beef mince and just with some dehydrated rice. My third option is a shepherd's pie mix. Now this is more of a vegetarian shepherd's pie. It's just made with beans, lots of tomatoes, a few other bits and pieces, lots of vegetables. And then I also just have a packet of freeze-dried mashed potato there to make up with that. And then my last one is a gluten-free macaroni and cheese. And the way that I've done this is basically just by drying off some gluten-free macaroni pasta, macaroni elbows. I also dried off some just normal beef mince just by itself, and I've packed that all together in a vacuum sealed packet here. And then what I will be carrying with me is one of these continental cheese sauce packets. Now this technically, if you look at the serving information on the back, is a 4 serving size. Originally I was thinking that I would just have one of these packets for 2 macaroni cheese vacuum sealed packets, just for the sake of getting a little bit of extra energy through these 2 first sections. In particular, I'm going to be carrying 1 packet to 1 dried pasta packet that I've made basically. So what are we looking at in terms of weight for each of those? Let's go all the way back over here. So the spaghetti bolognese weighs in at about 145 grams. Now this is quite a large packet, and the same for this chili, but they do sit in my Z-Packs food bag quite well. It's relatively thin, so you'll notice that it is quite flat. I've tried to condense everything down as much as possible because I wanted to make it as flat packed as possible, as packable as possible. And you'll notice that actually I've packed everything in kitchen roll, and that is to just stop any additional beef or anything sharp in there from poking through this vacuum seal packaging. So that one was 145. My chili comes in at about 178 grams. Again, I've tried to get these as flat as possible. My shepherd's pie is 114 grams, and that is for this smaller packet. So you see that's quite a bit different to my spaghetti bolognese packet there. So this is just the shepherd's pie mix that I've packed away, and then of course I also have that little packet of mashed potato, and like I said, this weighs 114 grams for both of those. And then my macaroni and cheese option comes in at 170 grams for both of those, and again that's just because I have a little bit extra pasta. It's a little bit of a thicker packet as well. So that basically covers off everything that I'm carrying in terms of food to eat during the day. But then of course in the resupply boxes I am also sending myself other bits and pieces that I'm going to need along the way, as well as obviously all my drinks and things. So for example, through these two first sections I am also going to be carrying with me these little packets of hot chocolate mix. I've never tried this one before, but this is mainly because I don't know how much extra chocolate in terms of blocks of chocolate I'm going to be carrying through these first two sections, just because of the weight of them, and also I know that I might not be carrying extra cheese and things through this section as well. Of course all those things add up to calories, but also it's comfort for you at the end of the day. So if I can't have a block of chocolate, I'm going to try and make do with just having a hot chocolate drink at night. This little packet here is all the other things that I need to top up along the way, and again this is mainly just things like drink supplies. So I'm carrying with me some packets of Earl Grey tea. I also like to carry with me chamomile tea bags because with my anxiety I like to have one of those or two of those in a cup at night time just to help me sleep a little bit better. And then at the end of every single day hiking I also have one of these sachets here, and this is basically just a rehydration drink. This is something specifically to be used for people who are dehydrated, and I know that I'm very bad at drinking the right amount of water when I'm out hiking, so this is just my backup to make sure that I am staying hydrated and to try and keep my blood pressure as regulated as possible. And then outside of all the drinks, the only other things I'm really packing into my resupply boxes are just extra toiletries. So I have cut myself from bars of soap and shampoo bars, just these little slivers that I can then pack into my resupply boxes. They fit into the little box that I'm carrying my soap in while I'm actually hiking. That's the only reason why I've done this. Otherwise you can just pick up soap and things obviously along the way. And similarly for little tubes of toothpaste, I've mentioned in previous videos that it is very difficult to get smaller tubes of toothpaste here in New Zealand. So I came across this one the other day when I was in the supermarket. I picked up a few tubes and I've just dispersed that through my resupply boxes, so I know that I'm always going to have toothpaste to brush my teeth. Alright, so now I've got all of that you saw here on the table earlier packed away into this box here, and you can see that it is quite a large box, which is something to bear in mind, but don't forget that this is 8 days worth of supply of food. So this is the box that those incredibly generous people are going to be hiking into me at the Hackett Hut, and I say incredibly generous because this box here with 8 days worth of supply weighs roughly 4.5 kilos, and so you can see that that is a massive sacrifice for somebody to be willing to make. That equates to roughly anywhere between 450 to 650 grams of food per day, and the only reason that I've been able to achieve a weight like that is because I have pre-made and pre-dehydrated a lot of the food that has gone into this box. Contrast that with something like this box here, which is for a later section further on down the trail. This is around 4 to 5 days worth of supply on this particular section, and you can see that the box size is a lot smaller. And even though I haven't actually weighed this box itself, I'm estimating it's anywhere from 3 to 3.5 kilos for everything that's gone into this particular box. Now, why am I mentioning weights and box sizes? Well, on the South Island, those two things really matter. First of all, you have to think about the fact that obviously New Zealand Post is going to charge you more to send a larger box that is a lot heavier. In fact, 5 kilos is roughly the cutoff for when it jumps up to the next pricing level. And then secondly, the other thing that you have to take into account, which is something that I didn't know until just recently, but that is that there are certain locations that you have to send these to on the South Island, and a lot of them will charge you to hold that parcel. Now, for the most part, they are relatively reasonable prices. They can vary from $10 to $15 at a lot of these places. And you can understand why they charge it, because a lot of them are located in quite remote areas, and so they have to make special arrangements to have parcels delivered to those locations. But I was quite surprised to find out that this isn't just a flat fee for holding your parcel, it is actually dependent on how big that parcel size is. So instead of the normal $10 to $15 that it would cost me to hold a parcel of this size, some of those locations would be charging $25 to hold a parcel of this size for me down on the South Island. So if that's something that is a big issue to you, then you might just want to take that into consideration as you're planning your resupply for the South Island leg of Te Araroa. Alright guys, so I hope that this video has been helpful for you in seeing exactly what you're looking at for a typical resupply box through a long section on the South Island. And like I said, specifically I've tried to aim this video at those of us who have specific dietary needs. And like I said before, don't forget to check out the links in the description bar down below. I've included a link to the page on my website that includes the recipes for all of the meals that you have seen in this video that I have pre-made for myself. And I have also included in that description bar a link to one of my good friends' videos. In fact, the lady that I will be hiking with, who has comprehensively covered off the topic of how to make and dehydrate your own meals for something like a through hike. So make sure that you go and check that out. Like I said, I hope that this has given you some good ideas of how to plan your food and resupply for either the Te Araroa trail or your next long distance through hike. Don't forget to stay tuned next week for my next video, which will cover off all of the brand new camera equipment that I have for the South Island, and then in the following week I will be giving you a full rundown of all of my gear, so stay tuned for that. Until then guys, make sure to take care and stay safe out there.